The second session of Deeper into Paul will look at the family under Roman law. The reason we're looking at the family is because Paul talks a lot about how we should live in our families, and he also uses family as a metaphor for some of his teaching. And we're looking at the family under Roman law because we can't assume that the family then is the same as the family now. And for this trailer, we're going to look at adoption. In 3 different letters, Paul says that when we become Christians, we're adopted into God's family, becoming God's children. Now, if I adopt someone, it means the person who's not my biological child has become legally my child. Nowadays, we look on adoption as something we do with babies and young children. We are raising someone to adulthood. We adopt someone so we can raise them to adulthood. And that's how we interpret Paul's teaching. But this view of adoption as adopting babies and young children, that didn't exist before the 1800s. Now, adoption's been very common throughout history and across many cultures, but for almost all of that, until the last 2 centuries, you adopt adults. You don't adopt babies or young children. Now, to our minds, the question is, why would you adopt an adult? Now, one way of answering that is you adopt someone if you don't have any children, or you adopt someone if your own children aren't suitable or aren't trustworthy. But again, why would you adopt an adult? To start answering that, we look at the first 5 Caesars, the first 5 emperors of Rome, from the birth of Jesus to the death of Paul. 4 of these 5 were adopted. If we take Caesar Augustus as an example, he was born as Gaius Octavius. When Julius Caesar was murdered, he then adopted Octavius posthumously in his will, and this was a big surprise to everyone. Octavius changed his name to Caesar, civil war, and then became emperor, changed his name to Caesar Augustus. And then, when he was 67 years old, he himself adopted Tiberius, who was then aged 46, and Tiberius adopted Germanicus, who was then aged 19. So you'd adopt someone in order to gain an heir, if you don't think your own children would be good heirs. You might adopt someone to train in the family trade. If you're an astronomer, a baker, a carpenter, you might have family secrets. You want to train someone up, but they will only learn if they become part of your family. Just as in the Middle Ages, the royal families would use marriage to forge alliances within Europe. Back in Roman times, you'd forge alliances between families through adoption. And finally, you might adopt someone if you want a carer for when you're old or frail. Adoption was an agreement between adults. The adopted child and the adoptive parents would both have to agree. Both parties must believe that the adoption is worthwhile. Knowing this, ask yourself again what Paul was getting at when he says that God has adopted us. Ask yourself, what does this say about how God views you? If you want to learn more about the family in Roman times and how that affects our understanding of Paul's teachings, come along to Deeper into Paul in April.